Hello world, it's Calcutron here with a tutorial on creating a quadratic formula program for your TI-83 or TI-84 calculator. If you're taking an algebra class and want to do away with the monotony of factoring or completing the square or even using the quadratic formula by hand, we're going to automate that task so that the calculator does it for us using TI Basic. At the end of this video, you'll have a program which takes the coefficients of a quadratic polynomial and gives the solutions. In order to use the quadratic formula, we need to first put our polynomial in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So once we've done this, the quadratic formula will then tell us what values of x satisfy this equation. So let's get started with the program by hitting the Program button, which is near the center of your keyboard. It corresponds to the letter C, which will be up and to the right of your key on the keypad. And we're going to call this Quad 4. So I went a little fast, but we just went over to the New column of our program menu. So I'll exit out and do that one more time a little slower for new viewers. So now we're in the Program menu and we go over to New. And now we type in the name and we want to call it Quad 4. In order to get that 4 on the end, we have to hit the alpha key in order to get out of alpha mode, and then we can start typing numbers. So now we have our program, and the first thing we want to do is, as in most of our programs, we want to clear the home screen. That's my favorite thing to do first. It just makes your program look a little nicer. And the next thing, we want to prompt for A, B, and C. So we want to get the coefficients and store them into our variables A, B, and C. So if what we're doing here seems kind of mystifying to you and you want to understand it, or you think this is cool and you'd like to learn how to create other useful programs, I recommend you check out my TI Basic tutorial series. So the next thing we're going to do now that we have our coefficients is we want to find out the discriminant. And what the discriminant tells us is whether our quadratic equation is going to have 0, 1, or 2 real solutions. So if our discriminant is less than 0, then if we go back to our view of the quadratic formula here, the discriminant is actually this thing. So it's the b squared minus 4ac. And if that is less than 0, then it's going to be the square root of a negative number, which is going to be complex. If it is 0, then it's going to be b plus or minus. I did my best with the plus or minus sign, but it's negative b plus or minus the square root of the discriminant. Now, if the discriminant is 0, then the square root of the discriminant is also 0, so it's going to be negative b plus or minus 0, which is the same thing as negative b. So when the discriminant is 0, our equation is just negative b all over 2a. And then if the discriminant is something positive, it's going to be negative b plus or minus that positive number. So we're going to get two solutions, one with negative b plus the square root of our discriminant, and then one with negative b minus the square root of our discriminant, and then both of those all over 2a. So now let's go back into our program and actually program that. So it's going to be b squared minus 4ac. We're going to store that into our variable d for discriminant. And now if our discriminant is less than 0, which, like we discussed, means that we have no solutions, we then, and let's put in an end here, then we want to display no solutions. And when I say no solutions, or when our calculator tells us no solutions, what that really means is there are no real solutions, and there will be 2 imaginary solutions. So that's what we do when the discriminant's less than 0, but when it's not less than 0, so in our else case, let's put on an else here between the then and the end, and then this code will run only if the discriminant is greater than or equal to 0. So otherwise, let's just display the 2 solutions that we come up with. So it's going to be negative b, and the first one is going to be, or, well, the order doesn't really matter, but we're going to say the first one is negative b minus the square root of the determinant, And then we want to divide this whole thing. So I'll wrap it in some parentheses. I'm going to divide the whole thing by 2a, and we'll have to wrap this in parentheses as well. So that's one solution when it's negative b minus, and then we want to display our other solution when it's negative b plus. Square root of our determinant all over 2a. And that is it. This is our quadratic formula program all done. It's pretty short for a TI basic program. It takes up 2 pages. So this is the first one. If you're still copying it down, you might want to pause it here. On the first page, we clear the screen, prompt for our variables, find our discriminant, and then we test our discriminant. If it's less than 0, there are no solutions. Otherwise, meaning it's 0 or greater, we want to display 2 solutions. Now, like I was talking about before, if the discriminant is 0, it's only going to have one solution, and we're displaying 2. We're going to be displaying the same thing both times, though. And so I'm okay with our program outputting the same number twice. And it also makes the program a little simpler. So let's look at running this. So if we use second quit to get back to the home screen and we run our program quad4, it prompts us for a. So let's do 1x squared plus 2x plus 1. So in order to translate that, we have to get our coefficients, and they are 1, 2, and 1. And that tells us our 2 solutions are -1 and -4. So it looks like we still have an error in our program. Let's see, what did we do wrong? An important part of programming is making sure you always debug your programs and test them. So we may have put an error in, and here's our error. So instead of doing divided by, I accidentally typed times. So if we fix that and rerun it, hopefully we should get better numbers. So 1x squared plus 2b plus 1. Oops, not plus 3. 1x squared plus 2x plus 1. There we go. We get -1 and -1. Alright, so it looked like our quadratic formula equation solver worked this time. Let's try it on a little bit more difficult input. So let's do 3x squared minus 11x plus 14 plus 10. Oops, we don't need a plus for the 10. And we get 1.6 repeating and 2. And we know that 1.6 repeating is the same thing as 5/3. And let's try just putting in some random numbers this time. So 5x squared and 300x and -50. And we can see, even though we gave it some crazy numbers, it found solutions. So it would have been a real pain to do this math in your head or to type it out on the calculator yourself. So hopefully this program alleviates that pain and makes it a little easier. Alright, so now we have a simple program that will find all the real solutions to any quadratic polynomial. This is just one of the many applications of TI Basic. You can use it to do all sorts of things like find volume and surface area of a sphere given its radius, calculate and show graphically a Riemann sum, or even make video games. I hope you got a little taste of what's possible when you know computer programming. I really think it is the most powerful tool for a mathematician at any level, and I also hope you walk away with a working, useful program. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I will be sure to answer them. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.